Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, a shout out to Plan Marcus for putting together this countdown video that I absolutely love. So we're here today to dream into existence Canada as the first G7 country legalizing Bitcoin as tender. And for that purpose, we have three absolute powerhouses from Canada that is home for so many great Bitcoiners. First of all, we have Mr. Ben Lobb, Member of Parliament. We have two toxic happy hour alumni that we've met in Miami recently. They've been on here. We love these guys. First of all, Jeff Booth, author of The Price of Tomorrow, which is a book that comes very highly recommended. It will teach you about why deflation is better than inflation and why that is key to an abundant future. And also he teaches us about exponential growth that we don't understand unless we read the book. And of course, veteran bond dealer through 32 years, Mr. Greg Foss, who has been dealing in that market for half a lifetime, and has taught us that the price of Bitcoin, or Bitcoin, really is an insurance on the default of sovereign debt. But he knows all the debt. He knows the corporate, he knows the sovereign, and he knows that it is the bond market that is the dog, and the equity market is the tail that is being whacked by the bond market. So, ladies and gentlemen, on that note, good morning and welcome to the Toxic Happy Hour, where we are toxic towards scams that delay the adoption of global sound money. Those scams obviously include the petrodollar and any other fiat currency. So guys, welcome. First of all, Ben Lobb, you're new here. Thank you very much for joining our Canadian edition here. I have three questions for you. First of all, what are you drinking, sir? Second of all, what do you think about the hyper spending of money by the current Canadian government, the hyper printing of money in Canada? And lastly, also, what kind of future do you see for Bitcoin in Canada?
Okay, well, I hate to spoil your the start of the show here, but I'm drinking water in an old Coca-Cola cup here. And the reason is not because I'm a poor sport, but it is because I've got two children under the age of 6. And if I have a beer now, I'm going to be falling asleep at 6 o'clock. And I've got a lot of jobs to do between 6 o'clock and bedtime. So maybe a coffee after this show, but no, that's what I'm drinking. But I see there'll be others enjoying their drinks. And in regards to what is occurring today in Canada, there are some good things going on and there are some not so good things going on. But where I would take you first is back to the last major economic downturn in 2007, 2008. And I was a new parliamentarian at the time. And the government of the day took a different path, and especially took a different path with the Bank of Canada. And I think that was the right decision at the time. We were the last to go into the downturn, and we were the first to come out of the downturn amongst the G7 and I think the G20, but for sure the G7. We didn't have a mortgage crisis in our country. The banks remain stable, and we did present some programs within government budget to stimulate the economy, which it did work. And by 2015, we had a balanced budget and we're prepared to start paying down the debt. This downturn, this pandemic obviously presented a completely different set of circumstances. So if you take yourself back to February and March and even April of 2020, we really didn't know. We didn't know the reach of this pandemic. We didn't quite know. And when I mean we, I mean Canadian medical health experts and epidemiologists around the world. They weren't really quite sure where this was going to go and how severe and how long it was going to be. But I can tell you my experience in our office was like no other. Instantly, people closed their businesses. Instantly, people were without a job. And so in order to, avoid a complete financial disaster of, untold proportions in the last 100 years, the government provided stimulus that was unprecedented. And in the beginning, I don't fault it at all. It helped people get through tough times and pay their mortgages and keep things going. But as we are into now well past a year, people are ready to get the economy opening fully. In Ontario, we still have restrictions, and really across the country, some will open up completely in July. But really, we have an economy ready to go. We have jobs that are going unfilled. And so, to me, the Bank of Canada, I know they are still purchasing roughly $2 billion plus a week in securities, in bonds. And I don't think that is a good idea at this time. My own opinion. I'm not a banking specialist, but I believe at this point, the economy can take care of itself. There are still some people that are out of work and that need help, and we should support them. But that is kind of the context of where we're at today. We've tried to be in it together, despite political parties, which I think is good. We have to critique, obviously. And on the last question, and if I'm going too long, just cut me right off. The last point you said was Bitcoin in Canada, I think, was that?
Yeah. Like, what kind of future do you see for Bitcoin among Canadians and maybe, in the formal Canada as well?
Well, if you look at United States and Canada, Bitcoin adoption is really adopting very fast. It is happening very quickly. And people, whether they have $100 in Bitcoin or they have $1 million in Bitcoin, it is happening very quickly. I took a note today in regards to Purpose ETF and the CI Galaxy ETF. And Purpose right now, and I know it would also probably include some other than Canadian investment, but they're adding 86 Bitcoin a day to their ETF. And they're at $750 million in their ETF. And CI, I believe, is right around 250 million in their ETF. So there's $1 billion. And then if you think of Coinbase and BitBuy and all the other ones, that would be for the average day, every day, there is a lot of Bitcoin. People are starting to talk about it more and more. And I think that's a great thing. There's a lot more to talk about, but I think the adoption is increasing. I think Greg and Jeff would agree with that. And there's all sorts of economic and statistical information that would back up that statement.
Nice. Thank you very much for that. A lot of insight to Canada. Jeff Booth, what's your take on this and Bitcoin in Canada? And do you foresee any chance that Canada could be the first G7 country to legalize Bitcoin, or is that just so far away that we need hyper Bitcoinization for that to happen?
This is a very loaded question, and it's so kind of where governments are trapped right now, and all governments are trapped. G7 is trapped, and this is the premise in the book too. But technology is deflationary, and that means technology gives abundance for less money. Every CEO puts technology in their business to reduce cost. It as a byproduct of removing labor at the same time. And it allows prices to fall. And we are in a phased transition between a system that worked one way on inflationary system and an inflation and a system that must work with deflation. Because if you can't stop technology, the faster you drive inflation into that system, the faster businesses must remove labor with technology because they can't find it. And they can't find the labor, number one, and because because things get too expensive, so they must go faster. So you have two systems operating exactly against each other, and the feedback effects of those systems are feeding back, making it worse and worse. Now, why has the G7 or anybody in kind of power today have a hard time with that equation? It's not because it's not true. It's because the system, if you message, we're going to move to a deflationary system, there's nothing backing the other system. It's just a pile of debt, and it unwinds to the sand. And so the counterparty risk all the way down the sand, there's no gold, yes, Canada has natural resources and can actually print into that. And because of the relative value of other printing, Canada can actually get away with it for longer. But it's not going to drive it in a long-term inflationary environment. It's going to tip back to deflation, which requires the government to keep printing more and more forever, which essentially, the debate isn't inflation deflation at that level. It's government control of everything, no free market. or free market. That's what because in one system, it's a requirement that the government has to keep leaning in forever. And so it's a centralization of control through that system. And that system, people don't realize it. It produces just about every other negative externality from that system, but they have no choice. Because what do you say? Like, even if Canada said, can you imagine Canada today saying, "Yep, we're like sending a signal to the market, we're all in on Bitcoin." The entire market collapses. Everything on so they're stuck. They have to keep pushing this, and hopefully the transition to a new system is done through Bitcoin, because the system can't change itself. Hopefully in the new transition of the new system, more and more people see this, more and more individuals see it, because it's savings of their time, savings of dollars, and it's a change of the system without overtly shifting, because the government can't change the system themselves. It has to be an outside in.
Right. So how do you see? This inflationary monetary system and the deflationary technology, so they're clashing, as you're saying. What's the outcome going to be? How's that going to end, in your opinion?
So signposts are all over if you look at the signposts, they're everywhere. You have divide of society. You have more and more government spending is today 26% of the economy. It must get bigger. So that takes more and more of the free market as the logical, every actor acting in their own self-interest in a free economy will do what I said, remove labor, try to find something faster. It has to. They're two totally different systems. So the essentially, and I've talked about this many times, but all inflation is a hidden tax. And so that hidden tax is a wealth transfer from middle class and poor to rich. And
Thank you.
But governments can't say, "Hey, I'm hiding." It's a theft. But governments can't say, you can't ask Ben to come out and say, "Hey, I believe in a theft," right? But that's what it is, unfortunately, and it's because we're incented for short-term behavior. Human beings want short-term behavior, and so you can say, "I can hide a theft and expand control by hiding something in inflation." But it's not congruent with kind of innovation, technology, everything else. So what ends up happening, if you have theft in the base layer of money, misinformation in the base layer of money, as a byproduct, that has to get worse and worse and worse. And so what's happening is technology is driving that knowledge of that worse and worse and worse into people's minds right now. So because people are measuring inflation rate from zero. I'll bet you 30 years ago, the disinflation rate was 1%. So you would have had, but governments, what did they do to try to stop that? Lowered interest rates to try to grow out of that. That caused debt binges. And technology kept going, maybe 2% disinflation, 3% disinflation. And so you're on two totally different paths, opposing paths. And so then 2008, because of what ended up happening, because of the debt binges, you actually destroyed the free market, and you said, if you make a bet, if the bet's big enough, then we're going to bail you out. I understand why they said that, because if they didn't bail out the financial markets, the whole thing would have failed then. But the cost of bailing out the financial markets, again, misinformation and money that has to expand structurally, that has to essentially hide that theft more and more and more and kick the can down the road. So the problem doesn't go away, it gets worse and worse. So now if you look at these two different systems that are working in totally different paths, we're out here. And the fall would be, if government said we're going to allow deflation to happen today, every bank, every government would collapse. That's what they're fighting. But it's going to happen.
Right.
But it's going to happen anyways. And that's actually why I looked everywhere. I tried everything first principles. How could this system transition to a better hope and future for my kids? And I realized it cannot from the existing system. I looked at every cryptocurrency, everything else, and Bitcoin is the best path, I believe, in my opinion, for humanity to make this transition. It is going to be messy. I wish it wasn't. I wish I didn't have to say that. But it is going to be the best path for humanity to make this transition, because where technology is going requires a currency that is digitally native and that allows for deflation.
Got it.
And every other path against what I just said is a concentration of power and wealth.
Couldn't agree more, and especially that Bitcoin is the solution, and we don't know what that bridge over to a world where Bitcoin is money will look like. We can all guess, but Greg Foss, we want to bring you in here. If you have some thoughts on what these two gentlemen have been saying, if you can tell us about the current price of Bitcoin compared to its value as insurance on sovereign debt collapse, and anything else you want to add to this conversation. Future of Bitcoin in Canada. Let's hear it.
So thanks for having me, boys. Ben, it's great to meet you video. Ben and I, full disclosure, have had a few chats on the phone. I want to share something about Ben. It's very impressive. He's a technologist at heart. He was a early employee at a very successful Canadian startup. I know his neighbor. I have a little surprise for you at the end of the show here, Ben, that Ken Chapman shared. We're going to get you to do a little stage act for us, okay? But I'm just warning you now. But here's what I know. So technology is the future. There's no question. I frequently say, look, I graduated in 1986 from McGill without ever having used a personal computer, and that's no shame on me. They didn't exist, okay? And then 1988, graduated from the US, had used an Apple Mac, but PCs were still floppy disks. And you need to understand how fast things change. And this is why a company like Ben has been involved in, and Jeff's book is so important. Technology becomes parabolic. There's no question that in the next 10 years, the world will change more in my lifetime in the next 10 years than it did in the last 55 years of my life. I'm convinced of that. A little note that I want to congratulate Ben on. So here's what Canadians are doing in Bitcoin. The value of the purpose ETF, as Ben pointed out, is $750 million. Canadians have actually invested over $1.5 billion in that, though. Okay. They started investing and continue to invest when Bitcoin price was rising and when it fell. Now, here's the good thing, okay? It's all a rounding error. I continuously say that. If you are worried about whether the price is 30,000, 40,000, or 50,000, you're missing the big picture here, okay? These are rounding error prices. You need to be buying it. You need to hold it as insurance against default on sovereign nations. What does that mean to the world? Well, look, countries default all the time. Look no further than Argentina, which is a serial defaulter, and it is a G20 country. So we're a bunch of Canadians here, and I think, Ben, I may have explained this to you, or forgive me if it wasn't you, it was another politician, and I talked about the default CDS default, credit default swap spreads on Canada. And Canada, we run around pretending we're a AAA rated sovereign borrower. And that's all good and fine until you actually look at the credit default swap market. And the credit default swap market is charging Canada, or people that want insurance on Canadian debt, a rate of a single A credit. Okay, that's not good. And our illustrious Justin Trudeau certainly has no idea where to find a credit default swap spread. I'm not even sure he knows where to find his hat, let's be honest. But at the end of the day, okay, you need to understand that financial markets are starting to raise an alarm on Canada. The credit default swap rate on Canada right now is reflective of a single A rated credit. That's not good. From a guy who's traded credit for his whole life, it starts to cascade. It starts to spiral. Loss of confidence in a country's credit rating is the beginning of the end. I don't want this to happen. I'm like Jeff. I'm hoping that there's a parallel system that evolves. There is no question that Bitcoin is the solution. And why is it going to happen in Canada, Ben? Because the energy markets in Canada are going to tell it to happen. Okay? The natural gas suppliers in Alberta, who are some of my clients, are making it happen. And you potentially will talk about some of the stuff you're exposed to in Ontario with the nuclear power and everything. This is exciting. It's on Bitcoin. Mining is the marginal consumer of electricity, and that's an exceptionally good thing when we could be giving electricity away at sub-market rates or even paying Americans to take electricity from us. That makes no economic sense to my 3 children. Okay? So we are in a situation in Canada where we think we're AAA rated, but in reality, the market's charging insurance rates that reflect a single A credit rating. And if that news comes out and the global bond lenders to Canada start treating us like they did the subprime mortgage, and I'm not comparing the two, it's just a contagion impact, this is dangerous. You need to hedge yourselves, ladies and gentlemen. My research, you mentioned this, Anders, look, it's only based on CDS rates for a basket of G20 countries. Bitcoin right now, by my analysis, should be trading over 100,000 US dollars per coin based on current CDS rates. It's going way higher than that. I'm not going to give you a time, but I'll give you a target. And if you want a time, I'll just say, buy now, keep buying 2 years from now, and let's talk in 20 years, okay? Ben, it's so great to see you pushing the narrative in Canada. Yeah, we are not going to be able to be like El Salvador, where by decree but that's so exciting what's happening in El Salvador. And by the way, the Guatemalan group that I talked to you about, Jeff, in Bitcoin Miami, I've been in touch with them, and they are doing some exceptionally cool stuff. And I really want, I'll take this offline with you sometime, but there's just huge opportunities happening in Central America. So Canada better start looking. We can't navel gaze too long. If we start staring at our own navel, we better start learning to speak Spanish, okay? So I love Canadians. I love French Canadians. I love Spanish Americans. But let's be honest. You better start learning and looking at what some progressive countries are doing. So sorry about that. Toxic happy hour. Cheers to my fellow Canadians. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Puppy.
Hey, first off, welcome everyone. Yeah, just to celebrate. We have limited options here, but I did find some Molson Canadian to go with today for the boys. Hey, listen, yeah, first off, just real quick as an introduction, Ben, thank you. I had met Ben in a Spaces chat a few weeks back. He's great enough there to be on and ask, hey, on a podcast. I think it's absolutely brilliant and fantastic that a politician is willing to just bypass any handlers, aides, media, and come out just straight to the people and just talk straight about fiscal policy, about Bitcoin. So one, thank you for doing that. And also, Jeff and Greg, as always, when you see these guys in Miami, they could be doing anything. And they were there patiently just taking question after question after question from anyone who would want to come up and meet them. So thank you all for it's such an interesting time, and this pandemic offered such a separate challenge than 2008 to me, because what you had here with this shutdown, which is the first of its kind, in my opinion, is now the unwinding, or how do you kickstart an economy again? How do you get things that have been shut down? People are paid almost to stay home. You're paid to stay home, really, and you have new technologies. And what I mean by this, if you look at, they're pushing to get the wages raised, okay? McDonald's employees, we want $20, $30 an hour. Well, guess what? There comes a crossover point when the technology to take orders makes it better just to use technology and not use employees. What people found out here, if I'm a business owner and I have 100 employees, what I found out from this pandemic is I've got this new tool called Zoom. I know I can trust, out of my 100 employees, I can trust 25 to work from home. 25 I need in an office, and 50 I didn't need at all. So this is just an entire paradigm shift in a way. So when you talk about inflation, inflation isn't just the printing of money, but it's also when you find out, like for example, and Greg, I know you own a few pubs. When I go to, when they would buy a case of chicken wings, it used to be $87. Now it's $143. And it's not just the printing of money, it's because they can't get the workers in there to process the food. So I guess my question moving forward to you is, how do we, one, get out of this sort of death spiral in a way? Is there a way outside of Bitcoin? What do you see as the way forward to recovery from all of this? And that's for you, Ben, if you can take it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, first off, thanks, Greg, for the compliments there. I should say, though, I'm not really a tech wizard. I worked in the finance department of that software company, but I was always amazed at the brain power that was working inside this company. And so one observation I'll make right off the top is, and I think everybody on this panel knows, the brain power, all the young people going into university right now and the best universities and colleges, they are all going into this space. That's my opinion. I think back 20 years ago, it was BlackBerry in our area. If you got a job at Research and Motion, I guess it was at the time, that was the dream job of a lifetime. And it's ebbed and it's flowed and it's come all the way around. So, but to your point though, on our economy and our labor, and this is not just for Canada, this is amongst the developed economies, G7 specifically, and maybe a few others, is the mismatch between posted jobs and let's just call it etc. And so we have a ton of outstanding jobs in my area. It's a rural area. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of jobs that are available out there. And the discussion we've had with business owners during the pandemic, and there's a number we've helped bring technicians from the US in to commission new machines, is they've been forced to mechanize and modernize their processing because there isn't the labor there. But if you think about sovereignty and what it is to be a sovereign country, and just the basics, we saw this last year when the grocery store shelves came perilously close to being empty. And in Canada, we have a breadbasket of food production. However, our food processing sectors, whether it's beef, pork, chicken, turkey, whatever it is very labor intensive. And there are processing plants that would like to add, I know this is supposed to be talking about Bitcoin, but this is, I guess, part of the economy. They would love to add another shift or add other lines. They cannot do it because the workers here in Canada aren't available. And it is very difficult to bring in, whether it's a temporary foreign worker or what have you, not for seasonal work, but for food processing work. It does happen. But, in my mind, we need to figure out a way to be able to support our economy. And it doesn't matter whether or not you're delivering propane tanks to a convenience store for people's barbecues, or you're building homes, or you're plumbing, or it's somebody to plow snow in the wintertime or process your food. We have a labor shortage. And the other thing I'll say is we have to, as a country, and I think it's all the countries, we have to bring back the pride in a job. And it doesn't just have to be a doctor or a lawyer. It can be the individual that picks up your recycling every week. It can be all sorts of different jobs. But a lot of it, I believe people look down their nose at certain jobs. And I think that's terrible. We have to respect all people that work, and we have to get our economy working. We still have a lot of people that need to get a job, that we need to get into the workforce to see our economy going. So that's some of the things I can see. And, the change in the economy in 20 years is amazing. I used to work at a foundry that made exhaust manifolds. They're still in business, but it has certainly changed tremendously. And even to this software company I've worked for, things have changed. Even hosting data, servers. I can remember back in 2007, they had their own data. They didn't have their own data center, but they had a space at a data center. And over the period of time, now it's all in the cloud, and it's a better solution. But one thing I thought I would point out here is some of the issues that have come forward in the last month and a half. And basically, when Elon Musk made his comment about renewables and et cetera, I think we've seen a really good coming of force with the Bitcoin sector. And many people wouldn't know. Now, obviously, I think Greg and Jeff would know. But if you look at Bitfarm and Hut 8, to my mind, they are the gold standard. Now, I'm not familiar with all the other farmers or miners, but those two companies are kind of gold standards in my mind. And Bitfarm, for example, many of you would know this, they've never mined a Bitcoin without using hydroelectricity. And so that's the word we need to get out. And in Ontario today, Greg would know this, there's 10,500 megawatts of nuclear. There's 3,200 megawatts of hydro, 2,100 megawatts of wind, 232 megawatts of solar, 26 megs of biomass, and 775 megawatts of gas, natural gas. And believe it or not, 1,000 of those megawatts aren't used in Ontario homes. They're used in New York and Michigan. So that just is a commentary, I guess, from the peanut gallery.
So Ben, and this is one I probably one of my I try to do this in a respectful way, but it's probably when you say jobs and everything else, and what's happening is everybody's measuring the system from the system, and they can't see what's happening. So when you say we should respect all jobs, it's really right now. The economy makes it really easy to hire as many poultry workers as you want. Pay them $200 an hour. Why can't you pay them $200 an hour? Because the market won't allow it. Yep. Pay the recycling worker $300 an hour. Why can't you do that? Because the market won't allow it. And the point is, all of this hand waving from a system that drives division into a society by manipulating money is just hand waving. I wish that wasn't true. I really do. I wish there was a different way. I wish there was a different way. But the thing that's dividing society is the thing you're talking about. And the more people that talk about why don't we just pay? Why don't we just do this? It's totally out of touch with reality and the market we're moving into. And technology, the technological deflation has just started. Most of it's in front of us. In climate, inflation equals climate change. The secondary conversation that you're talking about on Bitcoin mining being green or not is a secondary conversation. The primary one is there is no way to stop damage to the environment with an system that must grow forever and will manipulate money to do so, because it forces labor, capital, everything else to constantly race to grow more and more and more forever against the natural laws of physics and reality. It's impossible. So while people are caught in this energy debate, I cannot believe the whole ESG debate, because nobody has answered my simple question: how is inflationary monetary policy congruent with a planet with environmentalism?
Yeah, Jeff, you make great points. 100%. I think I wasn't saying, my argument definitely does not pay that person more. I mean, it'd be great to pay everybody more. My point was, this is more the very basic element, is that maybe it kind of doesn't quite tie into what you're saying, but the point is that we need all sorts of people to do all sorts of different jobs. And right when they're in elementary school through high school, the goal is always, well, Jimmy, you better go to university, you better do this, you better do that. But there's lots of good paying jobs working with all sorts of different things. But your other point, I'll say, is right. If you're making $20 an hour 10 years ago, it's a whole different $20 an hour than what you're making here today. And, I think of my first home. I don't own it anymore. It was under $200,000 in 2003. And that same home would be, who would know what it's worth, $500,000 or $600,000 now, a nice little home. But the point is, a guy making $20 an hour back then could afford that home. A guy or gal making $25 an hour now could never own that home, right?
Yeah, and what ended up happening is in the last 20 years before COVID, the world printed or created $185 trillion of additional leverage. $185 trillion to grow economies globally by 46 trillion. And people measure their houses like they're going to go up forever because you're printing money into something that is causing the problem. So you're measuring, all of the measurement devices we're using are from a system, and we're caught in that system, and you're caught in that system. Actually, and that's actually why I'm trying. Facts matter, and you're caught in that system. You're a Bitcoiner and everything else, but facts matter and the truth matters. And what's happening here is more and more people kind of caught in the energy debate, caught in all of these derivatives of a system that is creating their pain, can't see the truth. And it's getting further and away from the truth. All I care about, let's talk about the truth, because as an entrepreneur, here's what I do. I want to know everything. I want to know the bad, good. I want to chase it down right to the sand. And then I want all my energy going into the best fix. I make zero from Bitcoin. I do nothing. I'm not trying to create a platform for Bitcoin. I'm not trying to do anything else. I'm in it because I care about my kids. And by the way, you're a huge advocate for it, and I love that. Because we need to make it, instead of what governments are doing, because they're making it worse and they're actually driving fear into the process, whether it's green or anything else, on a narrative that is actually creating all the pain. What we need to do is get as many people, individuals, onto the system as fast as possible. Because the system can't save the system. I wish it could. The system can't save the system, and this is a system change, and it's nobody's fault. Just like a system change, Blockbuster was a system change. Technology changed the rules, and Blockbuster couldn't compete anymore. This is a system change to our entire global system that ran an inflationary monetary policy. And it is changing, and it will change no matter what. The faster people understand it, the faster people aren't scared of it, and they put their energy into, let's build a better future, instead of protecting a past that cannot work, the faster we transition more of society. And I hope Canada takes the leadership position.
We need to, guys. We need to, because you mentioned it, it's our kids. So your house isn't going up in value. Your unit of account is going down in value, very simply. So you talked about your house, Ben. My first house that I grew up in a place called Tanamount Royal, Quebec, my dad bought for $15,000. Okay. I guarantee that house is worth, well, let's just say that it's order of magnitudes greater. Okay. Right now. And that's just pure more money, the devaluation of your currency. So Bitcoin, we know the solution. There is no question that I am doing this for my children as well. Okay. This is a transfer of wealth over time and space. Okay. It's pure mathematics. I love to go back to my engineering roots. Just rely on mathematics. Don't confuse things. We talked about hydroelectricity. Well, unfortunately, one of my business partners, the CEO of the company, is 100% Indigenous Canadian. They don't think that hydroelectricity is actually that green. Okay, you ask them about all the dams that have flooded their native lands. They actually think that might not be the greenest technology ever. And so we need to be careful how the narrative is split. Hut 8 is a client of Validus Power. I actually think that they're doing some great things, and I appreciate you bringing them up. It's so neat that we are actually, let's call a fact a fact. Why are we selling power to the Americans sort of like a negative interest bond? We're actually paying them to take our power at times. This is ridiculous. Why don't we just say, stop giving them the power that we pay them to take? Let's start mining Bitcoin using nuclear energy, which, by the way, is the cleanest energy ever created by humankind, okay? Nuclear energy. Start mining Bitcoin with nuclear energy, and you're going to see an ecosystem that develops in Canada as quickly as it's going to develop in El Salvador. And this is good for my kids, for your kids, Ben, and also for Jeff's kids as well. Now, Pubby and Anders, look, you're going to have to move to Canada or El Salvador, okay? Because you guys aren't going to get it for soon enough, because the U.S. will be the last fiat to fail. But ultimately, all fiats fail. That's Voltaire. He said that in 1700 and something. All fiat currencies fail. And why is that? Jeff will back me up on this. It's only mathematics. Okay? You start printing enough of something and people start shoveling it to the curb, like they did in Venezuela. Please don't let that happen to Canada. Please. But as far as G7 countries go right now, Canada is pulling up the rear and we're sucking wind really badly. Okay? This can happen more quickly than anybody understands. And I'm not an ambulance chaser. I'm a realist and stating the facts, like Jeff has eloquently put. So we're so happy to have you in our corner. We're not going to put laser eyes on you or anything like that. We just want to state the facts. Bitcoin is good for the environment. Bitcoin is good for the kids. And most importantly, Bitcoin is good for capitalism. It sets a market rate, a risk-adjusted market rate of capital and pricing that is not manipulated by central bank interference. It's that simple. That is the danger. Quantitative easing and all this other garbage that the Canadian government has been the most irresponsible of all the G7 countries. The last COVID crisis, yes, we had to do something, but we didn't have to pull forward all of the future earnings at the expense of our kids. We could go down as the most selfish generation of Canadians ever. And that's my generation, the boomer generation. We have pulled forward earnings at the expense of our children. Look, that is not responsible parenthood, let alone governance. So,
well, if you remember, Greg, if you go back to that time in 08, 09, if you remember, they had a term, it was called the pigs, and it was Portugal, Ireland, Greece, and Spain. And they were all at the position of catastrophic default. And Canada was high atop the mountain on debt to GDP. And like, there was a complete distinction between Canada and those countries at the time. And in 10 years, 12 years, I think on your credit default swap information, I think we're behind all four of the countries. And that,
only because you're 100% correct. Only because they have ECB support, though. Because as Draghi said, we will do anything. We don't have a European central bank. Look. I'm going to plead with the Fed. Okay, I'm going to go to the Fed and say, why don't you take us under your wing? And you know what they're going to say? We don't need you. You're a fucking loser. Excuse my language. Okay, we don't need you. But that's Canada. Okay, this is my home country. We are not losers. We are actually people that do stuff. And with people like you that get the facts out, that is the most important thing. And then the Fed's going to be coming to us for help if we actually take control of this Bitcoin solution. So I know it's altruistic, but I'll tell you what, things in 10 years, let's talk in 10 years. If we could get some Bitcoin on our balance sheet because we sold all our gold, if Bank of Canada would actually be smart enough, or the province of Alberta pension fund, start accumulating Bitcoin and then telling the world that we own 10, 20 billion dollars worth of Bitcoin. Elon Musk can pound sand, okay? Elon Musk is a rounding error compared to a country. This is important for our kids. Sorry to go off, but this is...
Yep. Ben, even, and Greg, if you think about that whole pigs debate and everything else, there has to be a seller and there has to be a buyer. And if Germany is a seller, is an exporter on the euro, great, everybody else gets raises on the euro. There's a whole bunch more buyers. And who funds that? The German banks. And so they lend a whole bunch of money to Greece and Portugal and Spain and everything else on this narrative, and everybody wins, buyers, sellers. And then the narrative falls apart because they can't pay their bills, and they never could. It was just manipulated. It was just I gave everybody a raise, and I'm going to fund you. I'm going to do vendor financing. Now you can't pay the bills, but if you can't pay the bills, I can't pay. My banks all fail. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to change this, and I'm going to extend and pretend, and I'm going to give you more money. And then the ECB says, "Oh, I've got to back that because if that doesn't happen, the whole thing fails." And so look at Greece. Look at Greek rates today. Look at Greek rates today. Nothing has changed. It's just gotten worse. Have they paid back their bills? No, they've added more and more leverage. And you can you can finance that for nothing, and people are making that bet. But again,
all I was trying to say though was there was a big difference 12 years ago, and the difference is a lot less than it was, and it should be more. If we were running things correctly, the difference should be more than what it was 12 or 13 years ago, and it's come closer instead of farther away. That was,
and I guess that's what I'm getting at. If you think about the existing system, it must break down everywhere. By stopping a free market, by stopping creative destruction in the free market, you've moved creative destruction to the monetary level. That's all you've done. And creative destruction, essentially, Bitcoin is moving creative destruction by stopping at the free market. So the bigger forces are right now. By the way, I have spoken to the House of Commons many times, and in my speeches, the other people speaking, every single one of them are out. My whole family fails, my whole community fails, everything else, unless I get this money. Over and over and over and over again. So I totally understand the system that every MP is caught in. And so what do you do, right? So what do you do? Okay, no, we're going to let it all collapse. I get it, but again, stopping capitalism or the free market from working has dramatically negative consequences, and it concentrates eventually central control of everything. And the path we're on right now is centralized control of everything, because if governments let that fail, it unwinds. G7 specifically. Or this, or a more free market around Bitcoin. My hope is that, knowing full well that people can't publicly say we're going to let it all fail. My hope is behind the scenes we're doing everything possible to be able to get into Bitcoin mining, be getting into making it advantageous. The ETFs are a good example, right? Assuring that people can get into them in Canada and everything else, and bringing more people into a different system. That's my hope, that we're openly advocating for the new system instead of making it look scary.
Yeah, at the risk of jumping in. Do you mind if I jump in?
Can I just say something to, sorry, Pubby, I want to build on Ben's excellent point. Okay, look, we did not have a subprime mortgage crisis in Canada. Okay, our banks were well capitalized relative to global banks, but we've given that advantage away, exactly as you said. And the problem is banking itself. Okay, banks only have 4 to 8% capital against $100 loan. So that's to say they have 4 to 8 cents of equity against a $100 loan. So you need collateral values to increase, as Jeff said. You need the inflation of the asset to protect against that undercapitalization of the banking system itself. Okay, it's always just been a collateral game. Now, this won't end. You're not going to rewrite the rules of banking, but you need to create a parallel system. It's based on scarcity. It's based on its ability to live in a deflationary environment, exactly as Jeff's book states, and exactly as mathematics state as well. Sorry, Pubby.
No, that's okay. It's great talk here. And hey, trust me, the fans aren't here for me or Anders. Thank you.
They are too.
No, but so yeah, we'll start with one question. Ben, it's been 12 years. Something, an asset that has gone from 0 to 30, oh, well, up to 60, back down to $30,000. Okay, that everyone has watched grow in real life, real time. How many years, and how much of a percentage growth do governments need to see Bitcoin and the trust between people that use it at how many years? What do you need? 20 years and $1 million to understand it? Do you need 30, 40 years? I'm curious, how many years and how much money do they need to see this this is actually a store of value?
Yeah. Well, I will say this. I think you guys know where I stand on it. But what I will say is,
Sure.
I still have people that say to me, Ben, are you dumb? This is a Ponzi scheme, Ben. This is there are still people out there that think this is a Ponzi scheme. And I don't know that we'll ever change our mind. But what I would say is, I believe El Salvador is the most important. I really believe it is one of the most important events. Yes, in the banking sector in New York and all the things that are happening every day, you can't even keep track of all the deals that are getting done and things that are created. But in El Salvador, and this is a point I made, I call this, if you go back to anybody that's been in the software business, this is the biggest software implementation of all time. And it's the most important software implementation of all time. And I believe that if El Salvador has tremendous success with their implementation, and we saw the president today, he's going to offer people, I don't know if it was a phone, but it's $30 to put on your phone and you don't need a plan, it'll still work. I mean, if all these things work and you have large adoption and you get that 70% without a bank account down to under 20 or 15 or something, that to me is showing, and it doesn't take 20 years to do. Let's say it takes 20 months to do. If you can do that and show the rest of the world how it can be done, the rest of the story is written. And can you read sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, no, I was just going to jump in, and I'm going to tell you what I found so brilliant between the adoption by El Salvador. Of course, Jack Malish from Strike was mainly instrumental in getting this done. Is when we talk about hyper Bitcoinization, you get some people that think all of a sudden, like the U.S. dollar, Bretton Woods fiat currency system is just going to be replaced overnight, and it isn't. What I found so brilliant by what they're doing is that now you have a mix. You've got a mix. If someone has a wallet that can either use Bitcoin or cash, they take U.S. dollars there. What I think is brilliant is the buyer and the seller can both agree upon what they want to use. It's such a seamless integration. It's just another option, another opportunity for them to choose.
Exactly. And as this, which I believe will be a success, and if you look at the people and the Jack Mallers and all the other ones you read about all the time that are involved, they have achieved success, some at a young age and some over a long period of time, like Jack Dorsey and others. I believe they are driven to make this a success. They've said it, they will be driven to make success. And if you travel to Africa, you will see what the president of Tanzania said, I believe it was today. They're going to look at reversing their banning of cryptocurrency. And then you look at the 15 nations that use the CFI or the CEFI, however you want to pronounce it, that use a version of the old French franc. These are the countries that are looking, I believe, that will look towards this to change their country's lot in life. I had the opportunity years ago to go to Senegal, and it is one of the poorest countries in all the world. And it's incomprehensible. And maybe something like this, maybe not maybe, this will be the thing that changes the structure of the world. It will change the structure of the WTO, the World Trade Organization. It may change the structure of the UN. It may change the structure of many things. But my other point that I had made, every country basically has a international development agency that is tasked with investing in countries to improve their lot in life. And many years, there's been little to show. And there is some to show, but I think overall, most would agree there's little to show. And I think in the near term, the near future, you will see many countries, if El Salvador is a success, when it is a success, there will be countries that will have a bolt-on with their international development agency that will have this in it, that supports it and that encourages it for the people. Because really, if you have no money, no access to a bank account, and limited access to education, that is a pretty tough start to a young person's life.
Yeah, I do work. I do work with a lot of U.S. embassies and consulates around the world, and you're absolutely right, because we have a division called the U.S. Agency for International Development, called USAID. USAID, though, to me, just basically ties them back into our own system. What I think is going to be brilliant is when these countries realize all we need to do is buy Bitcoin and mine Bitcoin. They can do it on their own. They don't need any other help. All they need to do is buy Bitcoin, find a way to put it on their balance sheet. And now with like Jack Mallett, for example, you learn how to spend it with Lightning Network, for example. Going forward, there's going to be small countries, especially in Africa. They've got nothing left to lose, man. They got nothing left to lose in this world, monetary order. They've got nothing to lose, and I hope they really think hard on this. I don't know if they've ever been, I wouldn't say threatened by the U.S. government. No one's ever been threatened by the U.S. government, of course. But I guarantee they've got an opportunity. They've got an opportunity to free themselves. They can free themselves.
So Pubby, and it's not just El Salvador. El Salvador is a path on an exponential technology on an open monetary network that's just a logical path. The whole thing's going to change. Again, creative destruction is coming for the monetary inflationary monetary policy we have all over the world today. It's going to reset it. The only question is, did the G7, Canada, and everything else get on early and lead to a better hope and future for Canadians, or do they try and stop and move the ball and protect what was? That's really the only question. This is happening no matter what. This is and it's going to accelerate. And so do we lead? I hope, as a Canadian, I trust in what kind of gave Canadians an integrity around the world going into World War II, when it wasn't for us and everything else, and all the benefit of that is standing up for rights and freedoms. That carried through around the world and lasted a lot longer than people say. When you do the right thing, people care. This is the right thing, standing up for an open monetary network that enables individual rights and freedoms. Period. We can try to stop it, or we can try to work where the world's going, and that's really the only question, because it's going there no matter what. If we're late to the party, I'll move. Right. And because I don't want my kids growing up in somewhere where injustice and lies are promoted. I want them to grow up in somewhere where truth, opportunity, and freedom is promoted.
And Canada is losing some of our best and brightest. There's a brain drain. It's primarily to some tax havens in the Caribbean and whatnot. But I know 15 to 20 people that have moved down out of our country. That's compromising our tax base. It's compromising our brain power and our economic development, experienced people. So, Jeff, you're so right. I would hate to say I would move too, but you have to always look at the costs and benefits. And if Canada's left with a bunch of people, so I wanted to touch on your comment, Pubby. So yeah, we do own 6 pubs. I'm a partner in 8 Irish pubs in Montreal. We are having a tremendous problem staffing them right now because the workers don't want to come back to work because they're making more money on the benefits program, staying at home, sitting on their couch. This is not how you build the future of, or future generations in the future of a country, okay? I love Jeff's statement, extend and pretend, okay? You know, you cannot print yourself to prosperity. It's mathematically impossible. You need to incentivize people, and Bitcoin is the purest, most beautiful incentivization program I've ever seen in my life in 32 years of studying risk. It is built to be an incentive program. So I hope we incentivize Canada to go down that path.
I have a question for all three of you because it sounds like
there's four.
Oh, yeah. Okay, four of you. Dude, math,
Pubby.
yeah,
Yeah, math.
Basic math.
There's four.
1, 2, 3. I don't know. Jeff, it sounds like what you're saying about thinking moving out of Canada. Like Canada has a choice of whether they want to adapt Bitcoin or not. And I think right now, like El Salvador, each country has a choice. Personally, I think, and I want to hear your feedback, that once we get further in this, you know, like Parker Lewis says, gradually, then suddenly. You know, if we start seeing more countries going to a Bitcoin standard, does Canada even have a choice? It's a question for all four of you. Does Canada even have a choice once it starts happening?
No, it's just how much of the benefit you're going to win, and are you going to lead to? So a hockey analogy for Canada, a business analogy. A business analogy. Scarcity creates abundance, and so when everybody is doing one thing in a business, saying, doesn't that make sense? And you skate to where the puck is going. And if you're right and you develop to where the puck is going, it produces leadership. The puck is going here no matter what. Getting on board and helping Canadians early produces more economic benefit for all Canadians. And every single country, every single one is going through that same economic calculation in their head. In El Salvador, it just reached way earlier in Canada because they don't have what we have. So we take for granted for what they have, and they don't have it. And then people look at El Salvador and they say, it's a bunch of criminals. Crime is a derivative of not being able to pay your bills. Look at what's happening in the US right now as more and more people are put out on the street. Crime explodes. Look at any country that can't pay their bills, crime explodes. And it's not because human beings want to be criminals. It's because when you take everything from them, they will be criminals to save their families.
Amen, brother.
And so we have the order of operations wrong and how we measure other people. And so when we have the order of operations wrong and you say we just have to do this more and more to create more and more pain downstream for all of these other countries or our class that has been things have been taken away from them, it becomes a concentration of power. It sounds really good. It sounds, I'm gonna get elected because I'm gonna help these disenfranchised people, and I'm gonna drive more inflation so I can help them more, which actually creates more and more. So we have the order of operations wrong in everything. And climate damage, same thing, completely backwards. But people are in that system reinforcing what their former beliefs are, and their beliefs are made on quicksand. It's wrong.
So I just want to jump in real quick on this one, Jeff, because you're making great points as always, man. So Ben is here. The one politician that I met that has the balls to actually answer questions. There aren't many that do. He's one of them. If you're he's stuck in a moray, man. The swamp of trying to get shit done. He believes is true. If you're king for a day, can you unscrew the system? I know, Greg. I know, Greg. Yeah, go ahead.
Let me answer that really quickly. Ben being here is like, wow, incredible. There's a whole bunch of people that are using the system to try to get elected to blame the other party. This is party agnostic. This is a system problem. and it cannot be fixed from the system. King for a day. What Ben would do is talk the truth, talk about why Bitcoin is a positive for humanity, and skate to where the puck's going. And the more he does that, or politicians do that, the more they will benefit from true leadership, which true leadership comes from actually wanting to help people transition to a better future. And if you're right on that better future, then people remember, because it wasn't about you, it was about something bigger than you.
I couldn't agree more. And so, yeah, thank you, Ben, for one. I want to throw this one over to Greg, because Greg, man, at the end of the day, it's all about the mathematics, and Jeff does this too. At the end of the day, man,
so forget about my question. Just carry on asking your question.
Yeah, thanks. Greg, man. Greg, why don't you tell, how fucked are we really? How fucked are we? When you come to the numbers, national debt to GDP, what do we need, like 12% growth to even pay our interest? How are we?
Yeah, so if you take as a high yield trader and very sensitive to credit metrics right now, and I think I've talked to Ben about this privately, it's very simple. Total global debt to global GDP is 400%. So that includes all debt. It's not just government debt. It includes all debt. But nonetheless, your tax base, total GDP, if your numerator is 4 times the size of your denominator, and your numerator has a coupon, which is the organic growth of your debt, and if we put an average coupon on that debt of 3%, so this is where you're going, Pubby, 4 times 3% is 12%. That means your total global GDP, your denominator, has to grow at 12% per annum just to keep up with the organic growth of your debt burden in the numerator. And that doesn't include Joe Biden's latest $1 trillion, which, by the way, you know, there's a Wall Street Journal reporter who today I was listening to on CNBC, who basically says, and we can fund that easily. Like, this is criminal to go out and say stuff like that. We can fund it easily provided debt rolls over. But in a debt spiral, when your debt balloon continuously is growing, all it takes is one failed bond auction and you don't roll the debt. And then all of a sudden the gig is up. I've seen it happen many times with corporate credit. And there's no difference between a corporate credit contagion and a sovereign credit contagion. Canada, unfortunately, is just a little bit smaller than the state of California in terms of GDP and population and all that. Listen, Canada is a rounding error. And yet it's our country that our grandparents fought wars to protect, and pride and everything that Jeff so eloquently states. This is about mathematics. Very simply, we have reached a point, a debt spiral that cannot be solved. So yes, currencies will deflate will debase ad nauseum. It's just the mathematics of it. So, you know, yeah, unfortunately, that's the math. Now it can continue, but as soon as confidence is broken, that's what happened in the subprime mortgage market in the US. No one was having a problem with it until they realized Lehman and Bear Stearns were far overexposed to their capital base. And then their stock prices cratered. And once you're in a cratering stock price, you know, that's a contagion effect. So, you know, I don't want to be a doomsayer, Pubby and Ben. I'm not a doomsayer. I'm an optimist at heart, but you need to state the facts as they exist. Exactly right.
Well, one concern that I did note was I did note earlier the Bank of Canada buying, but the Federal Reserve in its buying, and I just checked, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's $40 billion a month the Fed is buying right now in mortgage-backed securities. And again, I do not know the quality inside those products that they are buying or that the banks are selling, but in a time when the market is this hot in real estate, and there's multiple offers on properties, even in the state of Florida and other places. And the Fed in the US is also buying $80 billion a month in government treasury. I mean, the US economy is ready to explode. I think like there's all in and out. If they just step back and let it go, it's ready to go. But yet we just keep putting this on. And I mean, just look at as recently as just in May, the futures price on lumber, it was up to $1.60 a foot. And I mean, it was $28 for a 16-foot 2x4x16. And I mean, now it's come right back down. I think it's about 85 cents a foot now. Well, I don't know if we'll see it at the lumber yard, but these are the kind of things that happen. And, you know, Kathy Wood, and again, I don't have every minute to read everything, but I think Kathy Wood has also said this could be deflation. I think she said this, like everybody thinks there could be inflation. And I think to Jeff's point, there could be deflation at the end of the day. We don't know on this stuff.
There is deflation. We live in a macro deflationary world, and adding more credit doesn't make that change. It actually accelerates. That's actually why we're on two different systems. So what do you think the base will be when lumber was 3 times the price and comes back down to 1 times the price or 1.5 times the price? Is that deflationary or inflationary?
Say that again. Sorry.
So so you print a whole bunch of money.
Yeah.
To make lumber prices go up. Everybody stores their wealth in more houses to make house prices go up.
100% down.
And now there's a shortage of all lumber. By the way, technology is moving in lumber too, and everything else, just trying to bring down prices. And so now I slow down the printing of money, and lumber prices start falling. But my base now is 3 times the price, and one of the inputs for inflation or deflation just dropped by half. Is it deflationary or inflationary? So what do I have to do? That's only one input. So do houses too. If I slow down the rate of printing, houses fall. If I do anything, the entire market unwinds. So what do I have to do? I have to keep printing more and more and more. That's why 500 billion sounded like a lot in 2008, and everybody marched on Wall Street. And now we have tens of trillions. That doesn't sound like a lot, and everybody go, "Oh yeah, awesome." Yeah. Bitcoin isn't the Ponzi scheme. We live in a Ponzi scheme.
Right. And I want to say I wasn't saying it was a Ponzi scheme, but I say what I was saying. I still have people that say to me, "Ben, it's a," and I The other thing I'll say is because we were talking about what will it take, what's it going to take for a G7 or a G20 company or country to do this, and I actually think what will happen is you'll have candidates for president or candidates to be for a leader of a political party, and one of their platform pieces will be, I will do the following with Bitcoin. I am your Bitcoin candidate. And I don't know if it's Democrat or Republican or Libertarian or Conservative, Liberal, NDP, whatever it is, social or Labor in UK. But I do believe you will have in the next less than 10 years, you will have candidates for those positions trying to get ahead and say, I shall do the following if I'm elected with Bitcoin. And I'm not talking about, your local member of parliament, that type of thing, or your local congressperson. I'm talking about, the big show.
Yeah.
Ben, I want to ask you, so who could that be from Canada if a politician in Canada who's running for like the main office position in power who said, hey, for the sake of the future of Canadians, I'm going to implement Bitcoin as something really important here, either on, Federal Reserve level, a Treasury level, amongst people of Canada, like in El Salvador, where he's pushing out, Bitcoin in the hands of people.
I definitely don't think it'll be in this election cycle. I don't think it's obviously because there could be one anytime, maybe into the next 2 years, but maybe after that election cycle, then I think there will be, we'll go in with 4 or 5 leaders of major political parties, and we'll probably come out of it after the results are known with 2 or 3 leaders of political parties. And then that will discuss the thing. And I mean, let's be honest, the people have to want it. And Canadians or Americans or people from the UK will have to ask their potential leadership people, hey, I want you to put this in your platform. And then that's really what I think will happen. And then you think what the world will look like in 4 years from now or 5 years from now, and it won't seem so risky, right? There will be, the mainstream will feel much more comfortable with the conversation. I'm comfortable today, but I'm just saying, the majority type thing.
Right. I love the fact that you understand that there is a halving cycle. Evolves pretty similar. I presume you have, is it every 4 years you have election in Canada?
Roughly, yeah. We're in a minority government now. We've had 2 successive majorities. So from 11 to 19, we were in kind of stable territory, I guess, and we're in a minority the last 2 years. So it could happen at any time. But considering we're, at the tail end of the pandemic and there's a lot of stuff in Canada going on, it seems now's not the time, but for an election anyways, but we'll see what happens.
Okay. I just want to thank you very much, Ben. I just want to also really quickly add, when Jeff said we already have deflation, and yes, if you hold Bitcoin as your store of value, as what you consider money, we already have deflation. All prices are deflationary measured in Bitcoin. Yeah, sure, maybe not from week to week, quarter to quarter, but that Bitcoin is just buying more and more, going up over time. Greg Foss, we want to get you back on track here. Not that you ever needed it.
I'm not, I cannot, I'm very encouraged. Okay. This is the type of leadership we need, the type of forward thought process we need, Ben. I know who I would like to see on the platform promoting that, and perhaps that'll come out in due course. We have some very smart financial critics in the House of Commons. Your talk about the price of lumber by the foot. There was a very famous Canadian politician that had a beautiful visual about inflation using lumber. We'll leave him unnamed at this point, but I know that he's talking to some very influential people, both in the energy space as well as the finance space. And this is what we need. We need forward thinkers, people that are not scared to think outside the box. Clearly, your being on this show is very important. So I have nothing to add, Anders. I'm really impressed. Before we go, the last thing I wanted to say is I want to get Ben to do that little challenge I have for him. So you let me know when the talk is coming to an end. And at this point, I just love to listen to Jeff and Ben spitball about the future, because again, it's unfortunate. Canada is a G7 nation, but we are smaller than California. We need to remember that. Okay. Like El Salvador, Central America has 60 million people. And as soon as El Salvador does it, Paraguay is looking at it, Uruguay, Honduras, Guatemala, all the other Central American countries. It's like being in competitive business, right, Jeff? If your competition is doing it and it's succeeding, you better consider it really quickly, or you're going to be left behind.
I'm getting a lot of DMs from the plebes down here, and this is true, man. And they got a proper point. Let's be honest, Greg. The only reason that Montreal Canadiens made it to the finals is because they're trying to take the attention off the money printing in Canada. Okay. I got it now. Let
me come out with some other mathematics, okay, Pubby, and you'll love this being from Philadelphia. Winning the 25th Stanley Cup is always the toughest, okay? Like the other 24 were pretty easy for the Montreal Canadiens, but the 25th one is the tough one, okay? 25th is battling the New York Yankees for supremacy of all-time greatest sports franchises ever. I love Rick Leach. He apparently scored in 11 straight games, and it looks like Braden Point from the Tampa Bay Lightning is going to challenge him next game if he can pot one. He will tie the great Rick Leach from the Philadelphia Flyers. At the end of the day, Canada plays hockey. We have some really good Canadian hockey players, but here's another stat for you. There are more Americans playing hockey in the U.S. than there are Canadians playing hockey. Why? Again, the law of big numbers. When you have 330 million people like the US has, Canada only has 33 million people. We can only do so much with our hockey guys. The US will win mathematically, G7, all these things.
Even Greg can turn in hockey to Bitcoin. I love you, baby. I love you, man. Jeff, you're on the West Coast. Are you a like? Who's your team out there, man? Are you a Edmonton Islander fan or?
No. I'm Canucks. It's just we don't talk about them very much right now.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
Hey, Ben, I have a question for you. Do you think it would be a good idea if the Canadian Central Bank, I mean, they can just print more money. What if they just printed more money and bought some hard money, Bitcoin? What do you think that would be a good idea?
Well, I think in time, like if you're saying to me, is it a good idea? Yes, I think it is a good idea. But I do think there'll be a process there, obviously, for it to take place. But I don't believe that the Bank of Canada should be where it's at today with their money printing. I think the economy is stable enough, secure enough, and it's I think we're over $250 billion since the beginning of the pandemic that the Bank of Canada has embarked on, and I believe we're at zero prior to February of last year. And so, in American terms, like what the government does there, that's peanuts. But for Canada, it is an issue, and I know there's so many people that are concerned about it, and obviously Jeff and Greg are experts on it. But I don't think maybe at the beginning of the pandemic you can justify it, but certainly the end of June 2021, it's pretty hard to justify, I think. And the banks are stable. It's very difficult to justify. And at this time, I just think we're delaying the inevitable, but the inevitable isn't the end of the world. The inevitable is they just stop printing more money. And so
Ben, on that, and Greg, I saw you clapping. The problem is, and that's why it's structural. The minute that stops, everything unwinds, and it keeps unwinding.
Right there.
And so it, and again, this is where everybody's stuck. It sounds really good right now okay, we got to take that off. But the minute that signal comes in, and whether it's in the Fed, whether it's Canada, everything else, the unwind is Great Depression on steroids around the world. That's what ends up happening. That's why they're caught in a spot that they can't get out of. There's no fix from the existing system. So we need to talk way more about how do we transition between systems.
Excellent.
Yeah. And
excellent,
I know
because sorry, Ben, just building on that from a credit perspective, again, think of the fiat currency as the error term in the debt spiral. They need to print to solve the equation where your GDP is not even keeping pace with the organic growth of your numerator, basically the debt balloon. You can't stop. If you stop, it's a leverage unwind. We know what happens in a leverage unwind. We've seen it regularly. The great financial crisis was nothing more than a leverage unwind. How do they stop the leverage unwind? They keep printing more.
You could do it for a bit, then you could go in and nationalize every bank, and you could try to stop it by nationalizing every bank. But as this leverage unwind picks up steam, which it would, is if you sent a message. Remember when Bernanke Powell came in and said, I'm going to taper, and the taper tantrum, and then all of a sudden I'm all in. This is a globally connected system that when you take that money away, so more and more of this path, we know where this ends. It's horrific. It's a dystopian society for everybody.
Yeah, and there was a good discussion.
It has to continue mathematically, or everything resets. Great Depression. That's actually why that is why the requirement for a different system that can actually port value and emerge out of what's going to become ashes is required, because there's no other way. I wish there was. There's no other way.
And I was just going to say there was a great discussion maybe a week or two ago on CNBC about Powell's comments, and they And I think one of the Fed chairman had maybe misspoke or had said something about it, and he came out. And so it was interesting to hear his comments. It was direct or indirect. And they basically surmised is that they have spent so much money to prop up the economy. They're afraid that if they pull back too quick, they vaporized all the money that they've spent to prop up the economy. But you kind of look at it and you say, well,
they're right.
I don't.
They're right.
Yeah,
The minute that you pull back, everything tips to what was there. It's just nature. It's been there all along. You can hide it you can kick the can, you can pretend it's not there, but that's actually the conversation I wish just more politicians would have, because then we can talk about the transition to a brighter future. While we're on this path, it is just all hand waving.
Yeah, we're sort of screwed here because we go from a system where you have someone on 60 Minutes that says, hey, we can print any money we need and jump into Bitcoin. And all of a sudden we got like a fucking living legend like Robert Breedlove says, buy some BitClout. So this is the system.
But Pubby, even on that, by the way, he's a Bitcoiner. We're all Bitcoiner. Let's just kind of, he's right on most things. I disagree with him on this issue.
Yes.
And I can everything else, but I can disagree with friends and move on. No problem. And I can disagree with the principal discussion that we're having here on a system cannot do this, and move on to what type of system can. And I'm happy to have that debate all day long, instead of the debate about people or about everything else. So in this system, if it's really simple, simple is if technology it creates efficiency, and technology is moving exponentially, then a system must allow for deflation, and every other system concentrates wealth and power as a result. Period.
So I had a question. I brought this up in a Spaces chat the other day, and the only one that can talk about my sanity is you on this one. Could we transition? When we transition to Bitcoin, it won't be pretty, obviously. But we go from a system that has, I don't know, what would you agree would be inflation? 15%, 20%? Can we go 15 or 10? Let's go 10% inflation for right now with Michael Saylor M2 money market. And now we jump into people that get a raise every year of 2%. They're on a net losing level. They lose so much, correct?
But it's worse than that first, because technology should be driving prices down at negative. They should be dropping by 5% a year. So you have a measurement problem in the base, thinking you're starting from zero. So technology creates abundance. It frees our time. Period. That's it. It saves our time, or we wouldn't use it. That savings of time results in less labor. And our oxygen we're breathing right now is the most valuable thing in our lives, but we don't pay for it because it's abundant. Now, you could create a whole bunch of jobs around oxygen and pretend it's valuable for people, but it's still only valuable underwater. And you can only charge so where it's scarce. Technology creates that everywhere. Yet we cling to a system that wants jobs for the sakes of jobs. So we're creating shitty jobs that nobody wants to be able to create a system because we're manipulating a system. Now, these are hard conversations to have, because we're living in a system and everybody's confused in the system. And so they keep going and they're confusing their house prices and their jobs. I need to make more. Oh, if a government gives me more money in MMT, then I can pay my food bills that are only going up because we're manipulating the system in the first place. But they're confused, because the first principle, the whole damn thing, is missed. It's a requirement. A new system is emerging. A requirement. the world burns in the other system.
I'm sorry. I'm distracted by my co-host in a white shirt, looking like David Bowie, coming off a cruise ship. What the fuck is this, dude?
Take that as a compliment. What are you talking about? Don't catch me off guard here. I'm getting back into the conversation. I had to run for get something out of the freezer because it took 10 minutes to deliver it from the supermarket, so it wasn't cold enough. Danes like their beer cold, so this baby has been in the freezer. So yeah,
we're hanging here. Hey, we got to go back. We got to go back to Greg and Ben here, man. What are you guys' thoughts on anything we've been talking about?
So, very, very simply, I love the way Jeff analyzes things. You cannot stop. It's that simple. A taper tantrum before will turn into a taper catastrophe now. Okay. It's priced into the markets. The vol is coming down because the Fed is squishing vol. As soon as they stop squishing vol, you will see it explode again, much like it did in the COVID crisis, much like it did in the great financial crisis. Okay. If the market was truly healthy, vol would be down below 11% annualized right now. It's right around 15%. And that's the lowest it's been in the last year since the COVID crisis. The markets are not functioning properly. Okay. It's all, it's functioning only because there's the implied Fed backstop. And if you take that backstop away, you will see new issue product evaporate. The ability to raise capital in the markets will evaporate. Generally, the markets do not work when vol is above 24% annualized. Okay. That happens in a heartbeat as soon as the Fed tapers. What is the flip side of vol, or exactly the same thing, but it's in the credit markets? If you're short credit, you are long vol. The flip side of that is if you are long credit, you are short volatility. And if you're short volatility at 15% and it goes to 80%, credit gets massacred. That's a leverage unwind. We've seen it, Jeff, on a regular basis. It's like a bus coming around. The Fed cannot stop what they are doing. So therein is the problem. Fiat currencies will continue to debase at an accelerating pace. You need another system. Very simple. So yeah, that's, I can only go back to my first principles, which is analyzing a credit and determining whether that credit will make good on their obligation, their contract to repay interest and principal in a timely manner. And that can stop pretty quickly, and it's very dangerous and very scary when it does. So I don't want that. Yes, go ahead.
Just exactly what you said. Now you have a system interconnected around the world, and for a while, China bought U.S. treasuries to be able to, and that allowed interest rates to stay low. Now, as the debt rises, and China fully recognizes, by the way, and this is China, of course, is doing the same thing as well. But as the debt rises and China knows for sure the U.S. has to pay back that by devaluing currency. In other words, pay it back without really paying it back. What would China do? What would any rational actor do? Wouldn't you maybe buy rare earth mines and things that are important in assets that can't be taken away from you, that are important for a transition to technology? What do you think, Ben, is happening in Canada as Chinese companies are buying our assets and critical assets, infrastructure assets that are important in the transition to technology? You end up by destroying money at the base principle. You actually force this action throughout the world, and rational actors acting in their own best interests take different parts of the equation, and that's what creates war. Because the only way to stop that is to take them back through force, or to create a population that says it's their fault, it's not yours. And so you create a whole bunch of population that says China's stealing our jobs, or China's stealing this and everything else. By the way, they're manipulating it just as bad on the other side, but you have a structural system around the world that must make revolution war more prevalent. It must. And most people will be convinced. Most people will be convinced. And if you think about your kids, my kids, and everything else, it's why I wrote the book in the first place. Because if you understand how the game is being played, it gives you a cheat code for the game. Number one. So how much money I can make, how much money I've made, staggering. But that's not what I really care about. The cheat code to the game, it's a way bigger game that we're playing. And the cheat code to the game says, this world won't look the same for my kids if a different system it doesn't emerge. And it's really important, way more important than money.
Did you read that comment that just went across, Jeff? If
no,
you didn't, it's beautiful. Does Jeff ever make a bad point? There it goes, right there. Does Jeff ever make a bad point? And that's beautiful. I love your audience. I love your audience, Pubby and Anders. This gives us strength. One of the things we were talking about in the lead up to this in the green room, Ben, was we went down to Miami the first time I'd met either of these two other gentlemen. But it was actually the first time that Anders and Pubby had met personally as well. I'm going to say physically, don't take that the wrong way. It's the first time they had actually met in person, okay? And the cool thing is this, you emerged from the Bitcoin community conference in Miami with a sense of hope, okay? Bitcoin offers hope. Bitcoin is a solution that provides optimism, not this continual pessimism. I know it's difficult to run a 4-year election campaign on the platform that we're going to change the world, and it's going to be painful at the very beginning, but over time it's going to be beneficial for our kids. Well, look, you probably don't win a second election campaign based on that on those promises, and that's the 4-year cycle. But here's what I do know for sure: if Canada had the guts to actually put some Bitcoin on our balance sheet, this would change the future of Canada as a leader in the G7 rather than a follower, okay? And I know Justin wants as badly as anything to be a leader of the G7. Look, why don't you start thinking about your country first rather than trying to be a puppet in a G7 on a G7 stage? So, I will do, and I know I'm speaking for Jeff as well, I will do anything that I can to help advance the education process of Bitcoin in Canada, because surely something that I see after 32 years of trading risk as the best asymmetric return opportunity I've ever seen in my life, called Bitcoin, certainly somebody has to take 32 years of experience and say, hey, the guy has not got the glue bag on. He actually has seen stuff unravel in the past. And if we don't act soon, it will be too late. It may already be too late. My hope is there is leadership that can address this problem and show us on a global stage that Canada still has the wherewithal to punch above its weight. We're doing it in the Bitcoin community, thanks to guys like Jeff Booth, thanks to guys like Francis Pouliot. Look, we can do this. But it starts with education, and it starts with an ear like you're giving us, and we do appreciate that. So thank you on behalf of my kids and the future of Canada.
Well, and it's interesting because if you look at the return on the market and what were the hot stocks last year, Zoom and all these companies and all that, and for many people, in Canada, they would have a traditional portfolio. As long as you're of a certain age, you're going to have some bank stocks, a pipeline stock, insurance company, maybe BCE or Rogers, and that's your dividend payers. And you may have one fancy stock, if you want to call it that, like a Shopify or something. But I think a lot of people that had a portfolio looked at the returns, say 6 months ago or 8 months ago, and they said, man, I missed out on a lot of things. And, the people who are likely in the Bitcoin community said, hey, you guys did miss out on a lot of things. But I think a lot of people had to change their way of thinking, okay? And I know that there are a lot of people that are changing their way of thinking. And from a traditional way, they are now entering a new way. And for what they knew is truth, then Greg is different because he's open to new ideas. But for the way they've been trained, taught, educated for 30 years working in business, now there's something different. And it's right there. And they're afraid of being wrong. That would be the first thing. But they have to get over that. And they have to open their minds to Bitcoin, to all the different things that come with cryptocurrency, blockchain, DeFi, and try and learn as much as you can. And, you know, Michael Saylor makes a great point about the amount of hours you have to spend to educate yourself. And I'm a long ways, believe me, from being an expert at all, but I'm interested in it. And the other thing I'll say is, it may sound stupid here, but I'll just say it anyways. If you listen to these Bitcoin podcasts and cryptocurrency podcasts, and you hear how excited the people who are in the space are and how excited they are. And I know for Greg, for example, I think it's changed his perspective on work and the opportunities out there. It is tremendously positive. It is. And these people that are involved, they're all smart, they're all educated, they're all motivated, and they're not looking out just for their own wealth. They're looking to improve the outcomes for the entire world. And it's so motivating. It's so inspiring. And when is the last time something like this has come along? Maybe never. And when you listen to I encourage everybody to listen to these podcasts and take from it for what you will. But if there's one thing you take away is it's positive, it's transformational, and the change is coming, and it's exciting to see.
I just want to say that we actually have two very good Bitcoin podcasts coming out of Canada. One of them is BTC Sessions, and the other one is John Vallis. You guys have great Bitcoiners in Canada. Yep. There we go. Hand of applause to these guys. And I'm also just realizing that Ben doesn't know that toxic caviar doesn't have an end, and he's wondering, you know, when can I go do some politics? Jeff, he knows. He knows he has to. He knows he has to call it himself. Yeah. Good. So Jeff, we know you got to run. So why don't you tell us a little bit, whatever you want to, come across as a message here in the end, and where people can find you, and if there's any books you're working on or whatever.
Yeah, probably not. I'll never say never, but probably not another book. This is the conversation that I wanted to kick off with the book in the first place. And what's happened is, and people talk about the book, I've been the lucky guy out of the book, not because it's turned into a bestseller, because of the people I've met out of it. So, and you guys talk about what Miami looked like, and Greg and I spending time with a bunch of Bitcoiners. I would spend that time all day long, every day. Like it's the people that care about freedom, hope, and a better future. It was my privilege, not theirs. It was a complete. So I can't believe I was so humbled by that experience, still humbled by that experience, and that's how. I feel like I'm so fortunate to be a part of this, this community where this is going. And Ben, you just said it. As more people really understand what this looks like, it's not as scary anymore. It's not as frightening. It's a whole bunch of people wanting to contribute to a better society, and I'd way rather be on that part of on that path, fighting for rights and freedom, individual rights, freedoms, and truth, than trying to protect an existing system that can't do that. So if anything, I'm humbled. Thanks for having me.
Jeff, thank you so much for coming on. Always a pleasure, and we look forward to have you back on again. A favorite Toxic Caviar alumni. Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, guys.
Don't go. Oh, he had to go. Okay, listen. Look, damn, we missed it. But yeah, we needed to get Ben. Okay, Ben. Here's the neat thing. I think that Ken Chapman told me that you were an auctioneer at one point in your life.
That is true.
Would you be able to count us down to before you make a final statement? I'd love you to make a final statement. I'm not going to say anything, but I request that you, after you make your final statement, count us down in an auctioneering style to end the toxic happy hour. Is that fair? So make your final statement. I'm going on mute. Thank you for being a leader in the Canadian Parliament that is devoid of leadership. I will say that out loud. I'm not afraid to state the facts. We need more leaders like you and Pierre. Okay, Pierre Poilievre is an outstanding Canadian on behalf of my children. So thank you, and I look forward to talking to you again a lot in the future to help Canada accomplish the mission of using our energy resources and converting those natural resource energy into digital energy called Bitcoin, and then distributing that beautiful innovation amongst the world. Okay, so thanks again, and I look forward to you auctioneering us out into the 4 p.m. Close.
Okay, thanks very much, and thank you for inviting me on this. I was I was learning about the process here with coming on your show, and I'm glad I took the plunge to try it, and I think it was a very fair discussion. And I do think, and there will be naysayers along the way, but Michael Saylor and Ross Stevens and many others, and the people who are on here today with Jeff and Greg and everybody else, like, it's going to happen someday, sometime. It's already happening. And I know in regards to the ESG commentary and the renewable resources and all that kind of stuff, the last revolution in renewable resources, which took place about 10 years ago or more, it was all driven by government subsidy, almost all of it, right? The solar panels and the wind towers and everything else. But this renewable revolution is going to be coming from the market. It's going to come from the market. And what Greg and his company is doing, and what you see in El Salvador, what is happening there, and many other areas, this is where you're going to see it. And with emissions reduction, really the last frontier in emissions reduction is electricity generation. And we will find ways to do better. We have to be open to what the possibilities are. But Bitcoin solving the world? No, it won't solve all the world's problems. But I am telling you, it is going to be a major plank in making the lives of millions of people better. And so I just hope that governments around the world are open to it. They do their due diligence. They understand. They ask the tough questions. And at the G20, they get their answers. And, you know, the one point, and then I know you want to go here, but in regards, there was one to do about consumer and investor protection. Okay, the G20 and their financial groups, they have a piece out about that, and they're very concerned about it. Well, fair enough, that is. But you want to go talk to some people that have had investments in other that are supposed to be regulated areas and see how some of those have gone. I would be more interested in that. And, you know, we've had a Bre-X in Canada. We've had a Nortel in Canada. We've had companies that are big, large market cap companies that have failed time and time again to do proper good governance, I guess you could say. So there are lots of instances. I believe in the open source, decentralized platform, and I wish everybody out there all the best. I'm a long ways from a perfect guy, but I'm willing to do my part for as long as I am a politician to help move the bar and the chain.
Ben, I just want to thank you so much for coming on. It's a pleasure to meet you, and great to have a Canadian member of Parliament on. And I wish you all the best in the future. And thanks for educating yourself on Bitcoin. We need more politicians. Thank you very much.
And I mean, I don't want to disappoint Greg. I don't. It's not for me to auction, but I can do it for a second for you, just for your show here, I guess. But my dad was an auctioneer for over 50 years. He went to auction school in 1965 and was a realtor and so forth. And so going through high school, I worked for him. And then after I did that on the weekends, help him out and so forth. And so I'll just do a quick thing. And I guess if I ever flop out of politics, I could be an auctioneer again, I guess. So anyways, I'll just give you a quick little rundown, and then I probably should get going. Okay.
Here we go.
And away we go. Start along here, the way we go, we start along here. 5 and 10, you're going to go 15, 20, you're going to go 25, and now 30, you're going to go 30, you're going to go 35, and now 40, you're going to go 45. So, you know, I've done that a few times. Done it a few times.
Awesome. All right. Yeah.
On its way to 1 million plus. What am I talking about? We'll leave it right there. Here we are, 35, going to 45, going to 45. Here we are, 6. Oh my goodness, it's over 1 million, folks. Here we go. Well, who's got a 2 million? Who's got 2 million? It's a rounding error. Don't overthink this. I love you guys. Thank you for Canada. Okay.
Greg. Yeah. Thank you very much for coming on. And I'm so happy that you just demonstrated why people call you Gap Daddy Foss, because you mentioned Bitcoin prices of 25, 30, and 40,000, and then all of a sudden you said 1 million. It's the famous Gap Daddy up when the world wakes up and understands that the price or the value is way higher than where it is, and everything's going to happen fast. The Gap Daddy Foss on Toxic Caviar. Thanks for coming on, both of you. An honor to speak with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, Foss, you're going out as well, yeah? Yeah.
Greg's here, I think.
Yeah, can't hear him. Yeah, I think he's going as well. So yeah, Puppy, big Canadian show today.
Right out. What's that?
Huh?
Yeah,
said big Canadian show today.
Trying to. What's that? Yeah.
What are you trying? You're trying to lock out. We are live, just so you know.
Yeah, no, they're trying to figure out this private chat thing. What the fuck?
Oh, okay. Well, the last thing you wrote was no worries. That was to Jeff when he said he had to go. What else you got? And remember, we're live.
No, that's it. No, we're good, man.
You know what?
Yeah, what
I think we can't add anything to that. It was great to have three Canadian powerhouses. We didn't talk enough about maple syrup. We didn't talk enough about moose, moose juice, moon juice. But yeah, thank you for watching, guys, and especially giving us an entertaining chat as always. That's why we're here, Puppy, right?
Of course it is, man. That's all we do.
It is all we do.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wait.
All right.
Yep, go ahead.
Do you want to do some final words, Puppy, before I outro us? All I got to say is, so having this thing in the freezer for like 1.5 hours after it came from the supermarket is perfect. Gotta say.
Yeah, hopefully that's like a good vodka or something. I don't know. I will just say this, man. Ben Lobb, man, the ball's on a fucking politician to come on a show, and he took all questions, man. I love the fact that there's a politician that takes all the questions from the rest of the world. Few and far between.
Absolutely. There are requests in the chat from Marty Sal, among others, Puppy Opener Spaces, also Suresh Singh.
Suresh is good. Yeah, Suresh is good. Do you guys start? Hey, Suresh, fuck you, Yellow. I see you hanging out here. You guys started up. I'll show up, but I got to go have some dinner. Yeah.
That's a good. I should. I guess I should have lunch at some stage. Anyways, awesome. Okay, so that was fun doing that, Puppy. And to the people still watching, I just want to say, be careful storing more value in dirty fiat currency than you can afford to lose. It is a built-in policy to dilute the value of your savings and basically steal what you have worked hard for. So be careful with that. Bitcoin is an alternative. It's hard capped at 21 million. It is already deflationary, and by that I mean already prices are going down if you denominate them in Bitcoin. And if you look at your houses that are going up in terms of fiat currency that is collapsing in real time, they're actually going down priced in Bitcoin. Bitcoin is, and here's the doorbell. So let that be the final words. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. And see you on the next one, Puppy. Love you, man. Bye. We're going offline. You stay in the...
Check.
Oh, where's the... There we go.
Check.
Yeah, we're
check.
still online. Yeah.
2 1 2. Check. Bye.
Okay.